this evening. Ability MKE Now is a show all about integration, bringing people with disabilities and people that don't have a disability together, enjoying life here in the Milwaukee area. We all have different abilities, and here at Ability MKE Now, we dive into this topic of diverse abilities. The concept of disability hits a wide range of possibilities. We could be talking about physical or mental disabilities, the deaf and hard of hearing community, blindness, chronic pain, mental health diagnosis, goals of substance use reduction, and the list goes on. We all have our own experiences with disability, whether it's our own or with people we know or encounter in everyday life. Here at Ability MKE Now, we break down those barriers and celebrate the ability in all of us. As a good friend of ours always would say, look at my ability, not my disability. And we can all appreciate those words and that sentiment. So with that, I am going to pass the baton over to Ms. Emily Gomer to give an introduction here for our guest this evening. So Emily, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Our guest tonight is an aspiring actress, model, screenwriter, among other things, out of New York. And so we met her through the Happy Neighborhood Project. And so I'm going to ask Juliana to introduce herself.
Welcome, Juliana. If you want to go ahead and give us a brief intro on who you are, what you do, what are you all about? Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Hey everyone, my name is Juliana, aka the Visionary Girl on social media. I'm a New York City-based content creator and graphic designer. I'm also an aspiring screenwriter, model, and actor. The reason why I really wanted to break into these industries is because there's a lack of diversity in the entertainment industry. And I always come back to a movie that came out in 2020 called Music. It was supposed to be about an autistic girl named Music who loves music. But the girl was not played by an actress with a disability. It was played by a star from Dance Moms. I'm not going to say her name, but you guys know who I'm talking about, just from the description. There are so many other projects that come to mind when I think about it. And what really inspired me to really get into film and TV was watching the Oscars when CODA, a movie about a deaf family, won. And I said, okay, if this movie can do this great, I think I can probably write something or create something that is essentially going to hit the same places as CODA did. That's why I started screenwriting. And currently I have 3 to 6 or 7 films at the moment that I'm writing. One is called The Given, which is about 7 magical teenagers with different magical abilities, ranging from fire to imagination. And it's not even produced yet. It's just, I have it written. The next one is something I just started writing called Project Possibilities. Essentially, Project Possibilities is based off of an organization here in New York. But I want to change it so that way Project Possibilities could showcase people with disabilities doing what they love and their special abilities, because a disability is not something that makes you different, it makes you special. Another project that I'm starting on is called Sharena of Belize, and I mean, I can go on and on for days, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah.
Excellent. Oh, we're so glad to have you here with us. So with the screenplays that you've written, then where do you find your inspiration? What is there anything in particular that that led you to create what you've created?
I think what really inspired me was I love movies like Black Panther, Annie, stuff that makes me just get out of my seat. I always say this, I always tell people this, but when I was in 6th grade, I started a special needs school in New York. And they took us to Broadway shows every month to every year. And the first show I went to go see with that school was called Wicked. and I loved Wicked. And I always say this, but I was bitten by the artist bug. And what I mean by that is I fell in love with the arts. And ever since, the arts has always been my thing. I love it.
That's awesome. I love that. So now I know before the show we were talking a little bit about even with TikTok and with social media, that type of thing. You had an insight with that I was not familiar with. I was wondering if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So a lot of you may not be familiar with Blind Talk. Blind Talk or Disability Talk is a group of people with AKA blindness or visual impairment or people with disabilities. It's a hashtag that you can just search hashtag blind talk or hashtag disability talk, and you'll see videos upon videos about people with different disabilities and visual impairments talking about their experiences and talking about different things. There's a guy that I follow named the Blind. Well, his username is the Blind Surfer, and I love watching his videos. He's blind, but he does voiceovers, and it's so much fun just to watch him. And oh my God, he's a huge inspiration to me.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So, and what was the name again? It was the Blind Surfer?
Yes.
Is that right? I need to make a note of that so I can look that up. So I should back up a little bit. So how did you meet? So who did you meet here with our group? Did you meet Emily? Did you meet Kurt? How did we all end up connecting here?
I met Kurt and Emily at the HMP. I don't remember which meeting it was. But we essentially just met on HMP a couple of weeks ago.
Awesome. So we've been especially blessed with doing the networking that we've done with Happy Neighborhood Project and the people that we've had the pleasure of meeting. And I'm so glad that brought us all together here, that we can have you as a guest tonight, because this is amazing. So actually, Emily, did you have anything that you want to ask about Juliana and what she all does? I'm going to give you a chance to come back in here.
I'm not sure, but the blind talk is awesome. Or I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm not sure, but the blind talk sounds awesome. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Juliana. Kurt can say something when he gets back. Well, I see his arm. I think we were sort of going to kind of collaborate with Juliana a little bit. She's looking to write a play, I believe, right, Juliana? You're writing something? A movie. Okay. So I think there was going to be some collaboration with that. I think. A conversation the other day, but I guess we'll see where that goes.
So with the writings that you're doing, which do you have one in mind that would be the first one that you're hoping to turn into a movie?
Yes, actually, I do have one that I'm still writing right now, and I'm hoping to at least finish up in between the next 3 to 6 months, because I'm still finishing the course on Coursera for writing a feature-length film. And the film in particular is called, well, the script is called 110% Me. It's about an immigrant girl named Janessa, and her family comes from Belize. And she has retinitis pigmentosa, which is essentially tunnel vision. But that tunnel vision does not end. And I wanted to showcase Janessa, her love for the arts, and her trying to find her artist bug. Where does she want to go? Where does the artist bug take her? And that's essentially what I'm trying to write in 110% Me.
Awesome. I love the title alone. I'm very interested to hear more of where this goes. Do you have any idea of a timeline on how long it may take to put that together and for that to become available? Or, I'm not familiar with all the hurdles that you go through to make that become a reality. So what's your hope with the timeline vision?
Well, the script I'm hoping to finish at least before the summer. And I'm going to be posting it on the list and a couple of other screenwriting websites. But definitely, I really will do this on the film, because I know a lot of people, even if you're not disabled, you will find something that you resonate with. whether it may be the love for the arts or just feeling out of sync with what society may want you to be.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask the question that that personally I sometimes find as the uncomfortable question. So I know you've talked about visual impairment along the way here. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit more about your personal experience?
Sure. It is not an uncomfortable question at all. I think it's a great question because shining a light on what a person may have is the best thing. So I have a couple things. I have optic nerve atrophy, which is your optic nerve is damaged, childhood glaucoma or congenital glaucoma for doing medical terms, and nystagmus, which is dancing eyes, which means I can't see far distances. Throughout my life, I've had this visual impairment. I've never, ever, ever felt like it was something that made me different. It made me special because of it. I love being a part of the disability community because it's so cool. It's such an amazing journey just to see who's with you on this journey. I've met so many friends in school and through life, even being on TikTok. I've seen friends that I've met I've had in school. So just being part of a community where people understand where you are coming from, that's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, that feeling of acceptance and relatability.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Huge. We all need that, right?
Yes.
Amazing. So I love that. A few things you said there, it's like, okay, we're in the right place here. I'm so glad you're with us. So I'm going to ask them the next question about, I appreciate that you are open to talking about your experience and what that's all been like. So for somebody who has never met anyone who has a visual impairment, I'm kind of thinking back to a friend of ours who is a wheelchair user, and I know sometimes people want to be overly helpful and want to start like pushing the chair for them, or and it's like, wait a second, hold on. Is there things that are helpful or not helpful, or for somebody who has no experience with an individual that has visual impairments, what do you find as being most helpful or not? Is there anything that ends up being kind of a peeve of how people may approach you along the way in life?
I love this question.
Okay.
I love this because this is something that a lot of people have covered on Line Talk. I'm so happy about this question because one of the ladies that I watched, she was talking about people wanting to pray over her. Oh, let me pray over you to cure your disability. No, don't do that. A lot of us are still trying to figure out how to accept our own disability. So it's not something you could just pray over and just wipe away. We're still trying to figure out who or what makes us a person with a disability. So just try not to do that. Some people, but it's annoying to a lot of us. Another thing is, if you see us, don't grab us on our arm and try and guide us. Ask us, or we'll ask you, and just don't point. Oh, it's over there, or it's behind you. A lot of us can't see where you're pointing. So you can say, okay, walk down 2-3 doors, 8 o'clock. Use the clock system. A lot of blind people find that useful because it gives them a perspective. And especially, I know a lot of my blind people, blind and visually impaired people. You guys may know this, and we work on this in orientation mobility. That's one of the things that really helps us is if you say, okay, it's not this way or that way, but it's to your left or to your right. Don't use over there and over here because that gets on our nerves. It's like, why? We can't see it, or sometimes we'll be off and you're like, oh, no, I'm a different way. So just use left or right, use directions, please.
Excellent. Oh, I love that. If at any time during this you think of anything else you want to throw in there, please do, because that's the kind of thing that is super helpful for people on so many levels. Because we all have our own things that can help us or annoy us, or and to be able to actually have that thought in our mind of, okay, I might think I'm being helpful in this situation, but you know what? I need to put myself in the other person's shoes and think about what is it like. I mean, people typically are well-intentioned, but sometimes, you know, it's that whole thing of just ask the question. What would be most helpful? And
Exactly.
Yeah, like
That's the best thing.
yeah, somebody might think they're helping, but in reality they're like really not all that much, depending on what it is. So that's the other thing about maybe asking if it doesn't seem to be going the way you think.
So I should ask then too, what other kinds of things do you enjoy doing? Do you have any sports perhaps? Our background personally and how we all got started in this has to do with adaptive water skiing. So I'm always kind of curious if you have any flavor of that you've enjoyed in your life or desire to.
Oh my God. Yes. So when I was in school, I went to a special needs school or a school for special education. And at that school we had different teams because it was essentially a private boarding school for people with visual impairment and behavioral disabilities. Thank you to the New York Institute for Special Education because that school really did a lot. Besides being a residential school, the whole time they had us busy. So when you hit like I think it was like 13 or 14, we were able to join different teams. So we had swimming, I didn't join that one. They had wrestling, I didn't join that one. I did cheerleading and bowling. I auditioned and I tried out for track and field. And I even played a sport called goalball, which is essentially you're taking a ball that is it's not as heavy. It's heavier than a basketball and it's as big as a basketball, but you don't throw it, you roll it. And inside inside the ball are belts that ring, and you're blindfolded.
Oh,
so
no.
it's like just rolling a ball into a corner, essentially. But you cannot throw, you cannot use your eyes. And you have to be blindfolded. And then later on, as I went through high school, we were introduced to blind beat baseball, which is the same thing as goalball, but it has a sound that beeps and it allows us to find it. And the good thing is, you don't have to be blind to play that sport because there's a lot of sports out there with the USABA, U.S. Association for Blind Athletics. I think if you guys are really interested in sports, look into it because if you love sports, just do it. They have sports from goalball all the way up to water skiing as well. So if you want to do it, do it.
That's amazing. And actually, we have a friend that does a lot of open gym kind of activities where everybody uses a wheelchair for whatever the sport is that night, and he just calls it another pair of shoes or a different pair of shoes. And so that whole idea of putting the blindfold on, where we can all play the same sport and have that being a component of it is amazing. I love that idea.
It's fun. It's like when I first played it, I played against guys, but it was painful, but I liked it. It was fun because it was a way of saying, okay, I'm only use my eyes, but I'm gonna use my ears. And it helps, especially if you are blind or really impaired, because sometimes your eyes may play tricks on you, and your ears are your best friend to your eyes.
And I'm just picturing, I know times in my life where I've done something blindfolded for whatever reason, and the different aspect as it absolutely makes you take just a moment and say, okay, I need to resituate myself and totally approach it in a way that I don't normally approach it.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, it's that idea of a whole different perspective. I like that very much.
Right.
So I want to get back to more about what you do between like social media and the graphic designing and all those things. if there's like one piece of what you do that you could say is your favorite, most fun thing to do, what do you like the most?
Oh, if we're talking content creation, I think it's just talking to everyone and just showcasing what I think is useful and fun, because I live in New York and I know New York is so hard to navigate and there's a lot to do. So I try and cover a little bit of that. But if we're talking graphic design, I think it's just to get my head out of the world and just dive into the arts and the inspiration behind everything.
Awesome. So, well, and I'm gonna also ask another question it's in my mind, so I gotta ask. So, graphic design. Wait a second. You're visually impaired. How do you do graphic design? Is that I'm absolutely impressed with that.
It's not that big of a deal, to be honest. There are blind artists, with visually impaired artists. It's not that hard. As long as we have things to make our lives easier, like voiceover or magnifiers. I personally, whenever I draw, I magnify what I'm drawing to the biggest I can. Most of the time I don't, because I know I might need to see it from like a different point of view. So I love just using what I have. And I normally just use large print because I don't like voiceover. It drives me nuts. And it's simpler, it's easier without the voiceover, it's quicker. So if I'm on the internet, I just zoom in real close so I can read. Ethan, that's all it is. Find your accessibility and use it.
We have another friend that actually has a business called Live Creatively, and that's because she's got her own disabilities as well, that makes it that she's always had to find a creative way to do everything she does every day, because just with how she lives. Because the quote unquote normal, and it's not the normal, it is, I keep quoting other friends today, being a temporarily able-bodied. You know, all of us, like myself included here, that I'm able to walk on my 2 feet to go where I'm going. I don't need to use a wheelchair or other mobility device. That's typical, common, I'd say quite a bit. So that is something where I don't have to think at that level of how do I do some of these things in life? How do I get into the restaurant down the road here if I'm using a wheelchair, for example? You know, there's different ways where you have to live creatively and make choices in that realm with everything you do. So I think that actually takes that level of creativity within a person up to that next level, because it's what you have to do all the time.
Exactly.
And there's definitely advantage in that. And I also love how your attitude with everything here too, because you're saying the same thing that so Chad is a friend of ours who's been on the show before. We go way back, and he's the one that put the phrase in my head of look at my ability, not my disability. And he's one that no challenge is too big. If somebody says he can't do it, he's gonna find a way, no matter what that means.
Exactly.
So now I know you also mentioned actress, modeling. What are your aspirations in that realm?
I was inspired by Deandra Forrest. She is one of the first albino models to be signed by a major modeling agency. I remember hearing about her when I first started in middle school at the New York Institute for Special Education. When I heard about her, I said, oh my God, that's amazing. I want to do something like that. And at that time, I wanted to become a fashion designer. But knowing how competitive fashion is, I knew that wasn't going to be possible. But I was like, you know what? Even if I want to do something similar to her, even if it's modeling, that's the dream. And with acting, I just want to represent my community. I know a lot of people are like, oh, just leave it to us. No. You need to see what it's like to be a person with a disability, to understand us. Don't just expect, oh, I know the medical terms, I know that. You don't know what our day-to-day life is, because everyone's day-to-day is totally different.
So what do you personally find as being your biggest challenge when you're trying to go about with day to day? Is there anything that is a repetitive thing that turns up to be a big challenge that you need to be dealing with?
Not really, because I've been taught how to cook in school. I mean, there's just so much stuff that a good special needs or special ed school will teach you. And yes, there is a difference between special needs and disability. But I'm not going to get into that because it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different ballgame. But essentially, when you go to a special ed school that's private, they'll teach you how to cook. They'll teach you daily living skills. Right now, for me, I think the biggest barrier is the expense for school because it's so expensive, and that's the only thing I can really think of that is just the biggest barrier. But I know that's not a barrier because there is a way around, as Eric Weimeyer would say, because there are no barriers.
I love that, and makes me wonder. It's one of those things. Makes me wonder locally here where there's a school that's equivalent, or if there is a school that's equivalent to what your experience was. I'm thinking there must be, but I actually am not familiar with it. So I have to do a little homework here, find out in the Milwaukee area if there is something that is really equivalent to what your experience has been, because it sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I think there's a whole bunch of schools that are like schools for the blind and visually impaired. I know there's one in Boston, Philadelphia, North Carolina. There's just a whole bunch all over the country.
Awesome. Yeah, which makes sense. You would think that would have to be something available for people across the country, because
Exactly.
I mean, you're not the only person in the school, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a definite need for that to exist. So awesome. So I know we're getting down to the last moments here. I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts that you would like to share as kind of a parting message for everybody.
To my disability fam and to my disability allies, just follow your heart. Life is gonna really whip you around like a piece of spaghetti. It's gonna fold, it's gonna push you. Follow what makes you happy, just like I did. I loved fashion. I was told, maybe not. The arts were my second love. I went for the art, and look at me. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm getting ready to look for schools, and you never know. You'll see me on the big screen or the small screen.
That's fantastic. I love that. And we will definitely need to stay in touch, and that we, as me and my husband for sure, and beyond us in the area here, if we are able to follow along and see where your future takes you and what directions this all goes. I hope to run across paths here with the Networking with Happy Neighborhood Project as well, because that would be a lot of fun. I know our Wisconsin group always meets on Tuesdays at 1, and that's a fun to be able to connect again with more people. And but for doing those meetings like that, there's no way we would have crossed paths otherwise. So I'm very grateful for that. So I am so thankful that you were able to come and join us, and that I had a chance to get to know you better here tonight. I hope this is just a starting point, and that we'll have a chance to connect further in the near future. But I just want to say, on behalf of Kurt and Emily Gomer, and for me, my name is Sue Rostoff. Juliana, we're so thrilled that you were able to join us at Ability MKE Now, and we thank you.
It was nice being on.
Recording stopped.
Awesome. All right. Remember, once radio's off in the waiting room, you are amazing. This is so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with us.